Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this, our first of the training sessions that make up our short course on reporting and marketing administration. Today we're looking at running a report. Now, reporting inside Sage CRM is something that we'll see underlies so much of the behavior that CRM offers to our business from our operational control element. We're going to look at how a user experiences running a report. Then we'll be going on in our next lesson to actually designing a report, including the different types of reports that can be created. Then we'll look specifically at adding a chart into a report, and then using as well how tagging information or dynamic data information can be added into a report as well. We'll use a lot of the underlying skills to allow us to then think in terms of what's happening with marketing. Reporting and marketing are related. They use several of similar underlying structures. If we think about groups as a basis of data as well. And we'll look at one final aspect about reporting, which is using the concept of groups to feed into the creation of outbound calls as well. So we'll look at the experience for driving out sales behavior or service calls behavior. Now, to look at what we're covering today in this session is that we're looking at how we can run different types of reports and to pass and set parameter values. We'll also look at how we can use summary reports as well. As I said, I don't think this is going to be a very long session, this particular session, but any of the recordings, any of the training that we're doing in this series is going to be recorded in order to replace and renew the existing training material that we have on the Sage Training and Support YouTube channel. And there is an existing course on the YouTube channel for the Sage CRM marketing and reports administration. So do have a look at that, and that's where you'll see that QR code will take you directly to the relevant course. Now, reports are ubiquitous in Sage CRM, and they are intimately associated with many of the features of Sage CRM. So they're not just something that sits in the reports menu. They are woven into the standard way in which we work moment by moment within the system. For some settings, literally, and that's something around the dashboards. I'm going to very quickly run through and try and make that point of the ubiquity of the reports just very quickly, and then I'll go back and actually spend a little bit more time properly surveying the different types of reports that exist. So if I step on and log on into Sage CRM here, you can see I've logged on as Susan May as a senior manager, and you can see that there are reports popping up straight away into the dashboard. They are each of these gadgets that we see drawing a chart are each drawing their data from reports. So very much reports don't just live in the reports menu. You can bring them into the dashboard. You can bring them here into the home page that we have as very much a live control panel where you can see summary of information, tabular information, all setting out in different ways, including things like, as you can see here, funnels and gauges. And Reports also appear in the classic reports area, and they cover every entity in the system, including system entities. So what you can do is you can even write reports about the administrative side of CRM as well. Now, here I'm just choosing to look at general reports, and if I choose to run one of those reports, and here I've just chosen to run a customer list by segment, the data returned can be restricted. You're never going to be allowed to see data that you are not allowed to see inside your security profile. Here you can see I've listed out an HTML report. This is a simple list report. It allows me to drill down with a hyperlink, and I can switch over back into changing the display in the main window back into the summary page of the entity that I've clicked. So I can now, as you can see, I'm on this main page. I could actually choose on the right hand side of this page, there is a button that says summary report. See the button called summary report there. If I click it, you can see that opens up a PDF window, another window containing a PDF report that has been generated. And here, this formatting could be formatted to however you need it to be formatted for your own business purposes. But that is then taking us very, very quickly through demonstrating that for Sage CRM, reports aren't just an add-on there. They're part of almost everything that we would do, and they're helping make sense of the data that is being entered every day, whether that's for the company's opportunities or cases. Now, we're not looking in this session at this technical design of the reports. That's in the next lesson, but simply thinking about how reports, once they have been built of different types, how do we go about using them effectively? And I'm hoping that what you'll see is that will get you thinking in terms of the decision making and customer communication that can be brought about from this implementation of reporting elements. Now I've returned back to my dashboard. I'm going to walk through very much more slowly through accessing a simple example of a report. So here you can see I've opened the menu and I've got different categories available to me as a user. Now the ability to access the reports menu in the first point is actually down to the rights allocated to the user. So not all users need to see reports, and not all users will see reports. And if I do click in to go into this general all categories, you can see that these categories are groupings of reports. And actually, you look at them, and they seem to make perfect sense in the sense that you're looking something that is, as we can see, focused on sales, on communications, on activities that people have been carrying out. So we've got different parts of that. Now, these different categories can be extended or contracted as the business needs. So you can have more categories, and you can also limit who can see these categories. You can see that I've got a category called My Favorite Reports. So each user can favorite a report and use the category for their frequently accessed reports. So anything that you would be using very often, you'd put into my frequently accessed reports, so my favorite reports, so you can get to them. Now here I've just flicked over to another user's screens, and you can see in this particular user, they have access to an additional category for administration reports. So access to report categories is down to administrative rights of the user. You can limit based on the user's team membership or their security profile to limit access. And it's even possible to limit access to report categories by certain dates and times. So if you've got a particular report category which is for running the month's end report, which is a big, heavy job, you may not want to do that unless you are within 2 days of the month end, or you basically would be carrying out an unnecessary database activity. And so there is always a cost with running a report. It puts a load on the server, and restricting reports to certain categories and restricting access to those categories by users means that you can be very judicious on who is going to be hitting your server with report queries. Now, I've returned to the original category screen, and I'm going to choose the general category. Now, users that have been given rights to access reports will either have rights to see just the reports that they have created that are private to them, or they can have rights to view all enterprise reports, which are reports that have been not labeled as private to a user. So here, these are all enterprise reports. They're not private to me. And I could, as this user, Susan May, as sales manager, I could go and choose to run a report. Now, in fact, what I've just done there is I've just marked one of those reports as my favorite. And if I now choose to drop down, you can see that it is possible to set up reports so that there are some default saved searches available. Now, this is where there are going to be parameters that can be passed into the report to restrict the returns results. And so if I choose this to be computers general as the segment, and I can choose to run this, what you'll see is that that has meant that these segments, these options within a particular field that is marked as the parameter for the report have been selected. So this works very well where the field is a selection list, but we'll see that there are different forms of category and parameters as we go through. So this happens to be basically dealing with a selection list and saying I want all of these different values to be returned in my result set, and then I can mark as to what I want that report to come back to, whether it is coming back as HTML, coming back as a PDF, or coming back as a spreadsheet. If I changed any of these, if I change the parameter values, I could save that. You see there's a save button, and that would save the parameters that I wanted to use. So I could create an additional saved search, if you like, that will be used for the next time I run this report. So if I've got a favorite set of category parameters that I want to use, then I can choose that. Now I've just hit the run button. You've got the run and edit depending on your rights. This is the run button. And here you can see a pop-up window has appeared. Now this is an HTML report, and the data is limited by rights. I can't see data that I don't have the rights to see. And this happens to be a type of report called a list report. And this is very much giving me a row by row breakdown of the records. For example, all of the open opportunities or all of the cases assigned to a team. In this case, it is all of the company list by a particular segment. And so actually list reports, because of they're basically squirting out data, they're most useful when you want specifics or you need to export that data to Excel for further manipulation. It's always good where parameters exist to actually make use of those parameters, such as date ranges or status filters, to narrow down exactly what you need. And here you can see this happens to have been a company list by segment, but equally I could have been running a report that lists out all companies added this month and then exported, with the idea that I would then be exporting that to Excel for further use, perhaps by an external system. So if I drag the window down to the right, you can see that this window is clearly a pop-up. Now, reports can have drill down behavior. So if I was to click one of those company names, you can see that I've just changed the main screen. So I looked at a list report and I've just come back to look at by drilling down, I've looked at the company that was included within that report. And that would be the same as to drill down into the opportunity or into the case, whatever is the entity being referenced as well inside the report. Now, I've looked at a list report. I'm going to look now at another type of report. And to do this, I'm going into opening up my reports area and choosing to go across into looking at activities. And what I want to look here, if I just mark this as a favorite report, I'm going to look at the activities for a user. And this is going to produce for me a cross tabulation of all of the activities, so I can actually see what types of activities different users have been up to. It's going to take what would be a long list of information and to summarize that into a set of basically a grid that that simplifies and summarizes the information that I'm interested in. You can see that here I've got some parameters that I could fill in if I wanted to. I've not filled in those parameters, but you can see in that earlier screen that there were multiple parameters that could be used. But I've clicked the Go button and I've run this report, and you can see that this one has also got a chart within the report. And if I scroll down, you can start to see here that this is where it's got the cross-tabular information. And actually, thinking about this report with the chart above it and the information below, including a chart in the report gives you 2 bites of the information cherry, because the first bite, which is the chart, doesn't have to be querying exactly the data in the same way. So you could be writing a different type of question using the chart that is different from the information that is displayed on the lower in the lower part of the cross tab. But this is where we've got this here. So cross-tab reports let you compare data across 2 dimensions. This is analogous to what's called a pivot table in Excel. And I'm going to do a little bit with Excel now here, but it's very useful when you want to analyze differences between perhaps regions, products, teams, etc. So you might want to use it for operational control, management of underperformance, or seeing what is exceptional and what is different from about a different team. But if I run this report now as a PDF, you'll get, this is an interesting report to run as a PDF because obviously it's got a chart as well, and as well as a table, and this will get us thinking about what gets shown across. So the historical reports, when we're doing this, is now being useful for this is so this is where I can run this again. This is looking at our pivot table again. Our cross-tabular information, activities recorded by the user, and I can step in and you can saw that generated a PDF document. But now if I run it with Excel, you'll see that it's somewhat different. Now the chart, this has opened up Excel, and I've opened it into Excel, and the chart and the image are brought across as an image. It's not an Excel chart. So this is static. It's a snapshot of the information. And the data that is brought across from the table is actually not structured as a pivot table. So there are no underlying functions brought across. What they're brought across as is straightforward numbers. So you would then have to carry out this. In my mind, makes it much more useful to start with a list report, to export that to Excel, to then use macros to be able to change the data as you need to. And you're going to be importing and applying a template to a generated report exported to Excel pretty well. So if I click through now, I'm going to this time go across into another report category because I want to look at the final type of report, which is known as a historical report. Historical reports are very useful for being able to understand what was the state of the data at a particular point, and then use that for the idea of comparison between two moments in history. So if I mark one of these reports you can see here as one of my favorites, I can step through and I can run my report, choosing to enter the categories that I need. Now in this case I'm going to leave a category blank, and what we'll find is that it errors, because you can make categories mandatory inside the report. So this has to be applied, and certainly the ranges for a historical report are always mandatory, because you need to be able to snapshot the state of the data. And here I want to be able to then pull in the needed dates, so I can then run my report, and you can see that this has been generated very neatly. And if I scroll down, you can see all of the information that is contained within the reports. It's not a very elegant report in terms of how this data is being revealed, because it is looking at fairly mundane data, but it is nevertheless allowing us to work out within particular weeks what was the state of the closing information, what data was closed when. And if I return back to this screen, I can now start to think about how these report types that we've seen, the list, the crosstab, and the historical, can be put into the context of other ways of showing information. So if I come out all the way up. Oh, actually, here you can see that I've come up and I'm looking now at the favorite reports I've created. So I've come up into the categories, looking down into the My Favorite Reports category. And each of those reports that we looked at have been brought into this category, which is different for every user. So their experience of the reports that they run they can build the reports category here as they need to, listing all of their favorite reports. Now I'm going to come across into a company. I think I'll go into Eurolandia, and within Eurolandia what I want to do is just point out there are three types of looking at summary information. Now, two of these are not strictly reports. One of them is a report, and that's what we've got with the summary report button over on the right hand side. Now, if I click this, you can see that this runs a PDF file. This generates a report as a PDF rather, and you can see it's got header information and then details of the child records associated with this particular company. This creates a way in which you can get a sense of everything that has happened inside this organization. And these reports are extendable. So if you've got custom entities, you can bring custom entities into the into these summary reports as well. So this is bringing cases, communications, and opportunities. I scroll down there, and if I come back and think about these other items, the quick look and the narrative, well, the narrative is a form of algorithm, a form of AI that will generate a report, but it's not actually using the standard report engine. It's using a custom bit of reporting that turns all of the disparate information into much more of a narrative sense that could be useful when you're handing over one company to another customer service representative who's going to be managing that particular company into the future. So it's a very digestible way of getting a sense of what's going on inside the company. Another way is to look at the quick look screen. And the big advantage of this is that this is essentially showing you the last 5 records for each of the entity types, and you can then click last 4 records of each of the entity types, and then you can go into those last 4 records to be able to see what's going on. So here I can drill down into one of the contacts within the company, and in turn you can see that it has a summary button, and I can run its report as well. So I started off the company, I've come down into the person has a summary button, and the summary button then opens up if I run that summary report. And these summary reports exist for cases, opportunities, persons, and companies. They each have their own structure of header and contents. The header and the contents are all under the control of the system administrator and can be extended to add in other sub-entities. Summary reports will never show data that a user is not allowed to see, and the system administrator is also able to switch off completely summary reports for the instance of Sage CRM. So if you don't want summary reports, you don't have to have them. You can remove that button from each of the screens. And so this brings us to the end of what I wanted to cover in today's lesson. I want to remind you that the reports are everywhere within Sage CRM. They're ubiquitous, they're integrated with all of the major features, and these reports help you with detail. Cross-tab list reports help you certainly with the detail. Cross-tab reports allow you to carry out comparisons. Historical reports show you snapshots of how things looked in the past, which can be compared with how things are now, and we can use parameters to provide focus on the reports. And again, we'll be looking later on in another training lesson how specifically reports can then be used within dashboards to create a really functionally rich user environment. So let's see if anyone has got any questions. Thank you, everyone, for coming along today and joining me for this training session. We will be looking at the writing of reports in tomorrow's lesson. I hope to see you then. Thank you all very much. Bye-bye.